Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I am Heena Goswami, editorial consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. In our ongoing series about AI, today we are joined by Dr. Arvind Narayanan to discuss the efficacy of AI systems and ways to ensure their effectiveness in the real world. Dr. Narayanan is an associate professor of computer science at the Princeton University. He leads the Princeton Web Transparency and Accountability Project to uncover how companies collect and use our personal information. Dr. Narayan has received the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientist and Engineer, and he has received the Privacy Enhancing Technologies Award twice, as well as the Privacy Papers for Policymakers Award thrice. Welcome to IGPP Expert Talk, sir.
Thank you so much for having me here.
So your book, AI Snake Oil, delves into the efficacy of AI system and how to discern their effectiveness. Could you elaborate a little on which AI systems are viable and how to differentiate them?
Sure, happy to do that. The main distinction we make is between predictive AI and generative AI. So this book is with my co-author, Sayesh Kapoor. There are many types of AI, but predictive and generative are the two main ones that are used today. Predictive AI is, the way we use the term is specifically about making decisions about people based on predictions of what they might do in the future. So in the United States, in the criminal justice system, people are denied bail, for instance, based on an algorithm predicting that they are likely to commit another crime in the future. And in the hiring process, there are many AI systems that are used to try to predict who will perform well at a job if they're hired. So this is predictive AI. Generative AI, of course, is things like ChatGPT or image generators. And we make a big distinction between them. It's hard to predict the future. That's just common sense. We don't know who is going to commit a crime. Nobody can really predict that beyond some crude statistical patterns, maybe based on people's income or geography or various other gender factors like that about them. Of course, there are some patterns there, but we don't think that can be the basis for making big decisions about people, for denying their freedom and other consequential things. And when it comes to a job, yes, again, there are some patterns. People who have more degrees or credentials performed better in tests might perform better at a job, but that only gets you so far. These systems are not very accurate. A lot of job performance really comes down to the particular environment, who's going to be someone's manager, things like that, which these AI systems don't really have access to and are not able to predict well. So we think that AI snake oil, which is AI that does not and cannot work, is mostly in the realm of making predictions about people's future. When it comes to generative AI, it's an interesting technology. There's a lot of new technological innovation. Definitely, there is a lot of hype going on there as well. Some companies claim that we don't need lawyers anymore because they've built a robot lawyer. We don't think there is any merit to claims like that. We have looked into it. However, if you think about simple generative systems like automatic language translation, let's say between Hindi and English or any other two languages, those systems really work well and they're already helping millions of people. And so that is the kind of AI, that does useful things for us that we want more of, as opposed to the kind of AI that makes decisions about people and forecloses their life opportunities. I think we should resist that kind of AI.
In both generative and predictive AI, there's use of quality data and computational resources. But are quality data and computational resources, are they enough to make sure that AI systems generate accurate predictions, or are there other crucial factors at work?
Sure. Quality data and computational resources are definitely important. Let me give you one example of how things have gone wrong because of the lack of quality data. In the United States, a healthcare company called Epic released an AI algorithm to help doctors in a hospital predict sepsis, which patients will develop these infections, and early prediction is important to treat them early and save lives. But it turned out that this algorithm had bad data. When the way that the algorithm was trained, it was looking at one of the factors it was looking at was whether the patient has been prescribed drugs to treat sepsis, antibiotics to treat sepsis. This is a useless system because it assumes that the answer is already known. The physician has already begun to treat sepsis. And so if you take a system like that and give it to physicians, it's not useful at all for them to try to predict sepsis because it is just using the prediction and making the prediction. So that turned out to be a pretty useless system. That's an example of how quality data is important, but that's not enough. One way in which, despite quality data and computation, things can go wrong is that people react to the way that the AI system is operating. Suppose we have a hiring AI system that learns that people who perform well on a certain test are going to be really good at a job. And based on that, you start making hiring decisions. But once you put the system into place, of course, we know what's going to happen. The candidates will realize that this test is really important for getting this job, and people will spend a lot of effort in preparing for the test. And a lot of people will be getting high scores on the test. I remember my own days of, cramming for the JEE exam to get into an IIT. It takes 2 years or 4 years. Students go through that whole rigmarole. But ultimately, learning for the test might not actually make them better at the job. And so the test actually starts to lose its predictive power. So simply because an AI system or a human system is paying close attention to a particular factor, that factor starts to lose its effectiveness in making the prediction because people naturally start to kind of game the system. So if we don't take human behavior into account, we cannot design good AI systems.
There have also been recent instances where major tech companies had to apologize or stop one of their programs because there were complaints of biases or lack of cultural and contextual nuances. And these have been challenges which have been continuous and significant. How do you propose that these challenges be mitigated?
One of the main areas where this comes up is on social media. Every social media company uses AI algorithms to determine which posts can stay up when you post something on whichever platform, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or any other, and which posts should be taken down. And these algorithms often have problems. Obviously, they're far from perfect. And so these companies have human reviewers. These human reviewers tend to be located wherever they can outsource that labor. A lot of them are in the Philippines, for instance, and the people who are managing the system tend to be in the United States. I'm talking specifically for American social media companies like Meta and Google. And so what happens in this case is the people and the AI systems who are making these decisions don't have the cultural knowledge of, for example, India or many other countries. So when there have been really problematic decisions, violence on the ground that has been stoked by social media, these and biased AI systems that are not able to understand those nuances, these companies have basically thrown up their hands. And the root cause is that they're not investing enough in local infrastructure, in building up an Indian presence or building up a presence in the various countries in which they operate. So I think one of the main things that's required is that these companies can't simply be based in the US and outsource all of their operations to one particular country based on where they can get cheap labor, but instead they have to consider the cultural context of every country that they're operating in and invest in those specific countries.
In the discussion that we are having, you mentioned that there's a lot of hype sometimes, and there are companies claiming that, oh, you won't need lawyers in future because you have AI doing that. You won't need doctors. You won't need software engineers, right? Uh, that does make people sort of cautious, and that does put skepticism in minds of common people towards the technology. So now, as AI is going to become pervasive in all sectors, education, healthcare, finance, how do we ensure that there's a positive view of technology and there's a trust in the foundation of AI systems?
I think we have to look at it sector by sector. We should not let AI companies dictate the conversation. Some engineers and researchers may be experts on AI, but they're not experts in law and medicine and finance. And so they often make very simplistic predictions about those particular domains. So when we want to think about whether AI can be useful in law or maybe replace lawyers, we should listen as much to legal experts as we listen to AI experts. We shouldn't think about it in terms of a hierarchy where these AI people are very smart, and so whatever they predict is going to happen. I don't think that's the case at all. And I think some of the leaders in these conversations should be those domain experts, for example, lawyers, as well as people from civil society, academia, various different sectors of society. And regulation has a big role to play here. So to give one example, we often think about it as AI regulation, but to me, it's often more helpful to just think about it as an extension of medical regulation or financial regulation or telecom regulation, education, various sectors. So if there is an AI-based device, for instance, that is being used in hospitals, ultimately, it doesn't matter that it's AI-based. It should be regulated as a medical device. It should be put through the same stringent tests that any other medical device is going to be put through. And we should allow that device to be used only if it has passed those tests. So I think we should lean heavily on the expertise that we have built up in various domains, and we should not let AI companies dictate the conversation.
Given the ubiquitous implementation of AI and its positive impacts, what do you foresee as the next significant development or application in the field of AI?
It's hard to predict the future. In fact, that's one of the things we say in our research, whether it's people or it's AI trying to predict the future. Our track record of doing that is really, really poor. But I can offer some general trends. I think in the last few years, we have seen a big increase in AI capabilities, things like automatically generating videos, whether it's benign things like entertainment or potentially harmful things like deep fakes. These are new capabilities that we weren't really imagining 5 years ago. And then similarly, when it comes to text generation or even code generation, a lot of capabilities have dramatically improved. My hope for the next 5 years is that those capability improvements will translate to making the technology more useful for people. That hasn't quite happened yet. There are a couple of big reasons for this. One big reason is cost. Right now, these generative AI models in particular are very expensive to run. You may have seen the news about OpenAI CEO Sam Altman trying to raise $7 trillion to build hardware for running these AI systems. And when I saw that headline, like a lot of people, I wondered, are there $7 trillion in the world? It turns out there are, but I don't think as a society we should be investing $7 trillion in building hardware for AI. Instead, we should be trying to figure out how to bring the costs down. So I hope that is one of the things that can happen in the next 5 years, making it more useful to people instead of just thinking about what is the next greatest thing, what is the next moonshot, which is just making AI more and more expensive. And the second thing that I hope can happen is to make it more reliable. So right now, AI has a very high failure rate. AI is prone to so-called hallucinations. It often makes up facts about people, sometimes very harmful facts about real people. There was a law professor, for instance, who was accused of sexual harassment by a chatbot. And people who didn't know better might believe that that is real. So there are these serious problems due to the reliability of AI systems being poor. And so if we want to make it useful to people, we have to improve reliability more than improving capability. That's one thing that I hope can happen. And just to complete that, the third thing that I hope can happen is we've had a lot of success in building these general AI systems like ChatGPT. I think what needs to happen in the next 5 years is customize that towards the various different fields like healthcare and finance, et cetera. And again, like I was saying earlier, that has to be led by the domain experts rather than by the AI experts. So those are three hopes that I have for the next 5 to 10 years.
Considering AI's potential in the tech industry, do you believe AI has the capability to propel India into a leadership position on the global stage in the new era of technology?
I think India has great potential. And the thing that I think is most exciting to me is basically Jugaad. So if we think about the kinds of things I was saying just a moment earlier, how to make this useful to people, especially in the Indian context where costs are really important when you think about making AI useful to, for example, a farmer or someone who is going about their daily life to be able to do useful things. So let me again illustrate the difference between capability and usefulness and how India has a big role to play here. So today, AI is capable of helping blind people do daily tasks by having automated methods to look at pictures or videos and describe what's in them. But to make this actually work in an effective way, to be able to make, for example, one way you can make this work is to make cheap sunglasses that cost, let's say, $500 that or 500 rupees, pardon me, that any Indian person can afford. And it has always on video capture, and it's constantly narrating to the blind person what it is that the glasses are seeing, so to speak, right? So this technology exists today, but it's not cheap enough, it's not reliable enough. And I think it's not the American companies who are going to do this because they want to maximize profits. And to some extent, it's not in their interest to bring down costs too much. And so these are the types of things that India can do, and then also export that to the rest of the world. So again, taking the technology advancements that have happened and making them useful to billions of people is something where India can be a leader. I don't think we should compete to be the next OpenAI. I don't think that's either a feasible or even a worthwhile goal. But helping people on a large scale is something where we can shine.
So, when we were talking to other experts in India, one of major highlights of our conversation was that, we tend to look at AI systems in the technology from a Western perspective. So, when we talk of job losses, for example, in India, the situation, for example, in the field of healthcare is such that there are no good doctors who are willing to work in rural areas, right? We do have infrastructure, we do have machinery that is needed, but they are not, AI can help there, right? So the discourse about AI has to be very localized, it has to be very context specific. What is your opinion as a former IITian now based in Princeton? Do you believe that this, yes, we are looking at AI from a Western perspective and that does need to change?
That is completely true. Western companies are controlling not just most of the AI market, but also the discourse around AI. And this has many problematic impacts. One of them, as you pointed out, the discussion about things like job losses has to be very contextualized, but also the labor that goes into training AI itself is, again, outsourced, and those workers are treated very poorly. And the work that they do ends up helping the bottom line of Western companies instead of the local economies. And I think all of these things should change. I was very happy to see an article about a nonprofit called Karya in Karnataka, which is using a very different model where the people training AI are actually training it to be more proficient in, I think it was Kannada or maybe other local languages as well. And it pays much better than the Western companies pay, and so you keep the knowledge and the technology in the local economy. So I think the discourse should change. The economic underpinnings of AI should also hopefully change.
Thank you so much for joining us today, giving us your valuable insights.